Hello and welcome to The Cutting Room. Not Jack the Ripper, it's a movie show from all the right movies.
I had to think about that one.
It wasn't Jack the Ripper.
This is part 2 of our deep dive into Jaws. Check out the first part here if you've not yet. If you have though, let's get on with it. First, the writing. The screenwriters of Jaws were Peter Benchley and Carl Gottlieb. They didn't write the film together. Benchley had adapted his own novel of the same name, written 3 drafts, and Gottlieb was a TV comedy writer who had never written a film before. He and Spielberg were friends, and Spielberg brought him in to eviscerate the script.
Eviscerate it.
So, a co-writing credit on Jaws, but how good is the writing, Westy?
The writing, I mean, what writing? Really? It's such a visual film. But I know that Gottlieb and Benchley had parts in the film.
Peter Benchley plays a news reporter.
Right,
and
okay.
Carl Gottlieb is on the ferry scene near the start. He's like the mayor's right-hand man.
Right, okay. Yeah. Great scene, that. You see, that's just purely
Yeah.
visual. The way he just holds that frame and everyone's
because it
inside.
moves
The
around.
composition
Great, yeah.
is just incredible. And I get that from the script. I don't feel like the script is... It's such a very visual film. It's so Spielberg's film. Spielberg doesn't... I don't really think he cares about what people are saying. I think he cares about what people are doing and how that looks. And I think that just works and kind of bounces off the screenplay. I don't think the screenplay is integral. You can't read the screenplay to Jaws and go, "Whoa, wow, that's like Chinatown." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's got that kind of vibe where it's just so much of a visual film. I can't really give much kudos to the screenplay apart from it chugs along and it works.
Yeah, I do agree with you, but I do think the writing is good. I think the narrative, which is taken from the book mostly, is excellent. Very good story, and I think it's like a rock. It's logical, and the jeopardy and threat increases as we go. The 3 main characters, I think, are well written. The protagonist in Brody does have an arc.
I used to hate the water.
And the dynamic between the 3 men's good. It's a constant source of a lot of humour and a lot of conflict, which I think is impressive. An area where I think the writing does impress quite a lot is in adapting the book by Peter Benchley.
Right.
The novel had flown off the shelves in 1974 and been a bestseller, really popular, but they did make some key changes for the film, which I think all work easily for the best.
Right.
Do you want to know what they are?
I know that was the mafia involved in the book, or was
Yeah.
that a screen?
That's the one I've
script
heard.
version? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few. Well, in the novel, Hooper has an affair with Brody's wife, Ellen.
Wow.
Groping in the dark.
Insult to injury, isn't it?
I know, exactly. It's probably the worst part of the book for me. It's really cringeworthy.
Right.
Then in the book, Hooper is killed by the shark when he goes in the cage towards the end.
Right.
Okay.
In the film, the mayor keeps the beaches open out of capitalist greed.
Love to prove that, wouldn't you? Get your name into the National Geographic.
But in the book, he keeps the beaches open because gangsters force him to. Which is as bizarre as it sounds.
Yeah.
Robert
And
Duvall in there.
He never asks a second favor when he's been refused the first. Understood?
And in the book, Brody doesn't blow the shark up. It dies when it succumbs to its wounds and drowns. And then when Spielberg changed the end to be more cinematic, Benchley apparently stormed off the set.
He was right. I was wrong.
What's he going to say? Oh, slowly die, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. So, yeah, I do think the script's elevated by the cast and especially by Spielberg, but I do still think that it's a good screenplay on the whole.
It's a good story, yeah.
It is a good story.
Yeah.
And Matt, what do you think of the writing on Jaws?
Yeah, very much agree, really. I don't think it is.
Yeah.
Well,
Some others who haven't.
I was just admiring your boomerang.
no, I don't think if you read the script, I agree with Wesley, if you read this, you wouldn't be blown away by it, you know.
No.
Give it a Scorsese at the time. He's not going to go, oh, sorry, Mean Street's going to put that on the back bench. Or got this one about a shark instead.
Yeah, that mafia shit would have stayed in.
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge the film has, though, is how do you keep people engaged with the film when the monster's in the water?
Yeah.
And all you have to do to keep safe is not go in the water because it can't come out. And I think that's got to be solved in the writing, which it does, because I do find the scenes on land as involving as the scenes we get out on sea, only in a different way. And for me, that comes down to the character writing, because you got Brody, chief of police, but he's scared of the water, and he's very blue collar. So he contrasts to Hooper, who's this privileged young guy who's plenty rich by the sounds of it, but but he's book smart. He doesn't have that much proper experience in the field, which Quint does have. But Quint is also an absolute madman.
Here's to swimming with bow-legged women.
and he has to be the one they've ultimately got to rely on. So you've got three very different characters, but I do love the way they all mesh together. And like you say, John, it's funny, but there's conflict in there as well when they do that. But because they're all flawed in their own way, they'll only catch the shock if they work together. So I like that. I think the writing does a good job of pulling that together, putting those characters through the mill and making them hit that realisation. And then amongst that, I like the other smaller characters, supporting characters, Ellen, Larry, Hendrix. It just gives the film a nice level of detail. So yeah, as a piece of writing, it's not outstanding, but it's definitely a cut above what you would normally get in this genre.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So the writing on Jaws then, based on a best-selling novel, elevated by the music and visuals perhaps, but still some good screenwriting in there.
Yeah.
There's a fairly large cast in Jaws, but three main characters in our protagonist, Chief Brody, and two strong supporting characters in shark expert Matt Hooper and experienced shark hunter Quint. We're going to pick one each to talk about, so who are you going for, Matt?
I'm going for Scheider as Brody, because I think Scheider is a really interesting choice.
Yeah.
Because he's an everyman.
Yeah,
He holds it together.
Yeah.
Because he's just so believable and he's so relatable. Because if you think, what's he done before this? He was in The French Connection, but he's just the sidekick.
Yeah.
And then after this, probably his biggest roles maybe Sorcerer and all that jazz. So he's a great actor, but he's not a typical leading man, and he's not like a matinee idol. And I think that works so much in Brody's favour because he's not an expert like Hooper. He doesn't have the experience of Quint. He is us.
Yeah.
He is what we would be in that situation.
Everything he does is what we would do.
Yeah.
I don't have to do that.
Yeah, just basically freaking out at every opportunity.
Jump some of this shit.
Yeah. You're so viable, Quint. You would kick off like that at Quint. You would lose it. And, he's got the huge fever water, which he has to conquer, so he's got a little bit of an arc as well. But, like I say, he's just very ordinary, which I mean is a real compliment, because famously, Charlton Heston was really, really interested in the role of Brody, but Spielberg turned him down because he said, Heston has been Moses, he's been Ben-Hur. Who's going to think he isn't going to vanquish the shark?
Not fair for the shark, because the shark wouldn't last through the first act.
And that's such a perfect way to sum up what Scheider brings. He brings vulnerability, and he's just got a really late, thoughtful performance going on here. You can see how much Alex Kinton's death weighs on his conscience when he's, that scene you mentioned, John, when he's at the dining table and he needs cheering up. You can see how much it's weighing on him. You can see how much he gets pushed around by Larry and everyone else. No one really gives him that much attention. They give him respect because of the title, but not because of him as a person, which I think makes him an interesting character to have as the hero. So yeah, I think it's a really, really great performance from Scheider. Like Wesley says, he holds the film together.
Yeah.
He does. He is brilliant as Brody, but it took a while for Spielberg to find his man. When the studio first asked Peter Benchley who he wanted to play the three main characters in Jaws, he said Paul Newman, Robert Redford, and Steve McQueen.
Which one's the shark?
I mean, that's crazy. Who are the three biggest movie stars in the world? I'll just have them, obviously. But Spielberg considered Robert Duvall as Brody.
Nice.
He considered Gene Hackman as Brody. And then he met Roy Scheider at a party. Spielberg told him he was struggling to fill this part in Jaws, and Scheider shamelessly put himself forward.
So what about me? I'm an actor.
And Spielberg cast him, which I think worked out all right, didn't it?
Yeah, because he overheard them in the conversation saying, and then the shark gets on the boat, and then Schneider was like, what's this? This sounds good. I'll do that.
The person I'm going to talk about, certainly my favourite character in the film, is Hooper, played by Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah.
Slightly strange man, Dreyfuss. Which is probably why I like him.
Oh, yeah, you love him.
But yeah, Hooper is Dreyfuss at his best for me. He's likeable, he's charming, he's funny, but also he is an excellent actor, so he steps up in the dramatic moments as well.
I got no spit.
I know that the studio originally wanted Jan Michael Vincent because he was more like Hooper in the book. But Spielberg's best pal, George Lucas, he'd worked with Dreyfuss on American Graffiti, and he recommended him to Spielberg.
Someone wants me.
But at first, Dreyfuss wasn't at all keen, and he actually turned Spielberg down because he didn't fancy filming out at sea.
That's going to be a bitch to shoot.
But then The Apprenticeship of Dudley Kravitz came out, and Dreyfuss thought he was dreadful in it, so he called Spielberg up and begged if he could still be in Jaws, which, again, worked out pretty well, I think. I love him in the film.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
when he brings like 2 bottles of wine. I didn't know what you were eating. Is anyone having that? And then just starts eating his food. It's great.
He always seems to have self-doubt, though. Dreyfuss, whatever he does, because after filming and finishing this, he did an interview where he said, the film's a disaster. I'm awful in it. Never has any confidence in himself, and he blamed it all on Universal.
It is not Steven Spielberg's fault. I repeat that. It is not Steven's fault or anyone's fault. It is the fault of Universal Studios giving this film an arbitrary May 2nd start date.
Obviously, he talked to him now, he's changed his mind, and says it's the film he's most proud of, which is understandable.
Yeah, because stakeout, another stakeout.
Yeah.
Yeah, but rightly so. He is brilliant. I love his intro where he ad-libs with one of the local fishermen.
They're all gonna die.
He's great in the autopsy scene. And he has some really good comedy moments as well. Excellent all the way through.
Aye, aye, sir. Arr, Jim boy, arr.
And Westy, who do you want to talk about?
Oh, am I going to talk about Quint, obviously. What a fucking badass. Isn't he? He's just from his introduction scraping his nails down the wall, the blackboard. Everyone turns around and he's eating, I don't even know what he's eating. Probably some kind of fish. And he's, I've just caught this, whatever, a cracker or something. And he's talking through it. And it's just that real kind of huge, masculine, central figure. And I think Robert Shaw was an incredible actor. I absolutely love Force 10 from Navarone. I think that's one of the great films that nobody talks about. And he tried to get himself through this performance by drinking through it, and it didn't work. And Spielberg said that. And I know there was troubles with him and Dreyfuss on set.
The great Dreyfuss-Shaw feud.
I know he kind of said at one point, I wish I could just stop drinking. And then Dreyfuss just took his shot glass off and just threw it overboard. And I know there was a few other things. He was just like saying the way that he dressed was just stupid and he just looked like a little kid or whatever else.
So I would say, look at you, Dreyfuss. You eat and you drink and you're fat and you're sloppy.
Don't have to take this abuse much longer.
Shaw challenged Dreyfuss to do push-ups. And Dreyfuss couldn't do it. And then he said, I bet you can't jump off the top of the Yorker, which was 90 feet. And Dreyfuss was going to until Spielberg stopped him.
90 feet? That's a lot, That's too far.
That's a lot of feet.
He would have broken every bone in his body hitting the water. That 90 feet is ridiculous. But yeah, an incredible actor and an incredible performance. And for that reason, he needs to be up there. So yeah, Quint for me.
Yeah, when you see and hear Robert Shaw talk in real life and compare it to Quint, you realise how great an actor he was because it's like a different person.
Totally.
He's still pretty offensive, though, even in real life.
There's a lot of skeletons in the cupboard here, There's more incest going on in Martha's Vineyard than probably any state in the United States. Oh, yeah.
I know that Spielberg's first choice to play Quint was actually Lee Marvin.
Yeah.
But he said he'd rather go fishing for real. Robert Mitchum turned it down.
Not the same
Oliver
thing.
Reed turned it down.
Ollie Reed, imagine him doing this speech. It would be 20 pages. Bombastic as fuck.
And Sterling Hayden turned it down because he owed the government millions in taxes, so he would have been working for free.
Yeah. It was the same for Shaw, really. That to fly him to Canada every weekend. Because he was in kind of tax. He had to give up his whole salary just to pay off his taxes. Yeah, so they could fly him to Canada every weekend. Come back, I'll just do this just to pay my taxes off. So I think everyone involved was just thinking, well, I'll just do this, see what happens. And it was massive.
Yeah, the other thing I love about Shaw, apart from the performance, is, as Wesley says, he was a writer, novels, screenplays, very well respected as well. This wasn't just like a little sideline he had going on that's a bit embarrassing now. Properly well respected, so he brings a lot to the script. And he did a lot of research as well. He lived at Martha's Vineyard for 2 weeks with a guy called Craig Kingsby, who's a genuine fisherman, and he took so much inspiration from him. That's where he gets the line, he talks about the bluegills and the tommycots.
Not like going down the pond chasing bluegills or tommycots.
Oh, great line.
Yeah.
Great line. I don't know what a tommycot is or what it looks like, but it sounds amazing. That's where he got it from. And he came up with the Spanish Lady song himself, and the Mary Lee Limerick. That's something he saw on the Tombstone in Ireland.
Tombstone in Ireland, because Spielberg said,
brought that in.
We're going to have to find out what book you got that from because we're going to have to pay for the rights of it. He's like, no, it's on a tombstone in Ireland. They are amazing. Yeah,
Craig Kingsby was a real-life Quint, apparently. He's in the film too, Craig Kingsby. Do you know where?
All right. No.
He plays Ben Gardner, and he gets a few lines.
Hello, Beck.
And then he plays Ben Gardner's head in the famous jump scare scene.
Wow. Okay, that's hard to play, surely. Wow. That's a nod back to the Birds as well, like the first body they find with the eyes pecked out. It's just like this one eye gone. You're like, oh, yeah, it is Hitchcock. Yeah, you're gonna get a scare rip off Hitchcock.
So one of the benefits of being in All the Right Movies patron is that we'll answer your questions on the show, and we have one of those questions right now. It's about the cast, and it's from George Anderson.
Of course it is.
George Anderson going to be.
Loves
Take
George.
it away, George.
Hey guys, George here. My question for Jaws is this. If the film were ever to be remade, who would you cast in the iconic leading roles, including Mayor Vaughn?
Great man, George, and that's a great question.
It is a great question.
Yeah. What do you think, Westy? Who are you casting in Jaws today?
One I've thought about for a week. This. All right. Who should I go for first? I'm going to go for Quint, and I'd have Denzel. What do you think about that?
Left field, love it.
Ludicrously good, I think is what you meant to say. Grizzled, you don't expect it from that character. Really, just fucking, where's this guy come from? To like a real coast town white. I'm gonna take care of this great white. Yeah, great. Loads of racial connotations in there. Fantastic. Hooper, I would have Timothy Chalamet as the little nerd. Turning up curly hair. I don't know which wine to bring. Fantastic. Brody, DiCaprio. He's on the top of his game right now.
Lovely.
And he would be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, obviously,
the mayor,
lovely,
right, obviously. And then the mayor I'd have is Anthony Hopkins, because I think he would be fantastic, just bringing that real kind of, we're keeping the beaches open. It's like, you know what I mean? Ugh, like, bastard, but lovable bastard. Great. Yeah, that's my four.
Right, I like it.
You don't. You hate it, but I love
it. Matt, who are you going for?
No one outrageous, put it that way.
There's nothing outrageous there. It's fucking great cast.
Right, Brody, I wanted the everyman quality, so I've gone for Jesse Plemons, because I love Jesse Plemons, and he just has that, ground of quality. I love him.
I like Plemons.
Plemons for Brody. For Hooper, I've gone for Joe Keery, who plays Steve in Stranger Things. If you watch Stranger Things,
yes, okay,
he's got he's got the mad hair, he's got the geekiness, so I think he'd be great as Hooper. For Quint, I'm going Brendan Gleeson. Actually,
right.
I think Gleeson has the grizzled.
It sounds more like a Netflix series, this though, Matt.
Well, you know what? It might
one
be
of them yellow barrels.
It might be. You never know. And then for Mayor Larry, Bob Odenkirk.
Odenkirk, lovely. All right. Yeah, what a bastard.
Yeah. Totally unreliable. Odenkirk's really
very good.
Better call the mayor.
I think we should mention some of the other cast members too. Lorraine Gary, the real life wife of studio head Sid Sheinberg, as Ellen Brody plays her part.
Fantastic.
And Murray Hamilton as Mayor Vaughn sports a superb array of summer jackets.
Yes,
and
terrible hair. Brilliant.
And the best performance in the film is obviously the guy who catches the tiger shark.
A what?
He's amazing, love him. Fantastic.
But in those three we talked about, Roy Scheider, Richard Dreyfuss, Robert Shaw, the 3 R's. Excellent performances across the board.
Yes, all the way.
Absolutely.
Aside from Spielberg and the cast, there were a lot of other talented people worked on Jaws, and we're going to pick some of those out now to talk about. So, Westy, who are you going to go for?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Bill Butler, who was the director of photography on Jaws, and I think he had an incredibly hard job. Sticking with Spielberg, just going, I want this, and I want this, and I want this to happen, and I want that to happen, and I've got all this stuff in my head, and he's got to actually make it work, and I think he really, really does. And, you know, he's not got a lot of credits behind him. He's done some fantastic films. I mean, he did Rocky 2, 3, and 4, so he completely saved that franchise, let's be honest. He did Grease as well, which I think Grease, it just looks of a time and kind of looks like Jaws. It just has that kind of feel to it and has that kind of mould to it. And I think that's what he does really well here. But what everyone's going to talk about is the invention or the reinvention of the Zolly or the smash shot or the contra zoom or the, you know, the shot, the Jaws shot, which I think was down to Spielberg to do and easy for Bill Butler to do because he's like, well, that was done, you know, by second unit cameraman Erman Roberts on Vertigo. I mean, to the point where it's like, it's integral that this is shot as if you're treading water. It's integral that this is shot as if it's from the waterline, because them shots in the film really, really make the tension work and really ramp the whole thing home. And Bill Butler had to like go away and figure out how to encase a 35mm camera and just have it on the waterline, so it goes down, it goes up, it's fine. So he invented a watertight box that went round 35mm camera, so it could go in, it could go out, and it was all handheld. It was all just very much, that's him in the water, he's just kind of given the movement of the shark, or not given the movement of the shark, or given the impression of what's going on. And again, that's Spielberg's direction, but it's his delivery. The way he delivers that vision is absolutely incredible. The way he delivers the vision of Spielberg going, they're just going from one side on the ferry to the other. The car's there's some guys over there, just shoot that so that everyone's in the frame. Okay, fine. But he's shooting it so nobody looks distorted. It's not a wide angle. You feel comfortable watching it. Everyone's lit perfectly, even though it's direct sun. You know, so he had a lot to do. And everything that I think he had to do in this film, he nails. And no one knows who Bill Butler is. And everyone knows who Roger Deakins is. But I think without Bill Butler, you wouldn't have people like Roger Deakins. And he nails it.
Yeah, in 2003, Bill Butler received the ASC Lifetime Achievement Award, mainly for his work and innovations on Jaws. And when he did, actually, Spielberg wrote him a letter saying that he couldn't have made Jaws without him, which is nice.
Absolutely true. Wow. No, it's true.
Yeah.
Totally true.
I mean, it is such a visual film, and the combination of the two of them, Spielberg and Butler, just fantastic. However, not every shot in the film was carried out by Butler and Spielberg. The moment towards the end of the film where Hooper goes under in the cage, there were two shark experts called Ron and Valerie Taylor, who Spielberg hired to film a 4'11" stuntman called Carl Rizzo in a small cage to make the shot look bigger. And when they were filming that cage scene, one of the sharks got entangled in the cage for real and started thrashing about, and they used that footage for real in the film.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they changed the ending, isn't it? So that his whole cage broke and then he was on the bottom of the water.
Exactly,
that's right. So they changed that because of that footage, which is incredible. But if you look at the footage that Spielberg and Butler do, it's like, it's going to be a tracking shot, it's going to be a zoom, it's going to be a perfectly composed, it's going to be a split diopter for De Palma, it's going to be really cinematic. And then you go, oh yeah, that's actual shark footage. Totally,
that'll do.
It totally works as like a contrast of like, I want to be up there, because up there is really cinematic, down here is fucking terrifying. Yeah, so it really works.
And Matt, which of that crew member are you going to talk about?
Well, it's got to be John Williams, hasn't it?
Of course it has.
Has to be.
I mean, just in general, where would Spielberg be without Williams, do you think?
Who knows?
No way.
Well, yeah, I mean...
Still directing Columbo without Columbo in it.
But I think particularly his music just adds so much. I love the dramatics of Fowler's music when they're out on the Orca. That's great. But it is the famous theme that I've got to talk about, because it's one of those pieces of music, it goes beyond the limits of the film. Because I guarantee... anyone watching this who's a parent, I guarantee when it's been bath time, you've done the da-da with your kids when they're little. Even if they haven't seen the film, you've still done it when you go swimming, from the swimming pool, just in the sea. You always do it, every single parent, guaranteed. And the great thing is the kids understand that music is supposed to be scary and menacing, and they totally get it just from two notes. I mean, I listen to it now, and I just think, in my head, I always think, well, yeah, that's what a shark sounds like, doesn't it? Like when a shark is swimming about, that's the music in its own head.
What do you mean? It's our theme song.
Like when people talk about music being a character in the film,
I
can't think of a better example than the theme from Jaws.
No, absolutely correct, because the shark didn't exist. There wasn't a character, and Williams had to create that character because it wasn't there visually. So you had to create it. I know Spielberg went in to listen to the first drafts of the score, and he played it to him, and he was like,
well, you really think that will work?
And then watched it with the visuals, and he was like, yeah.
Williams did win his second Oscar for Jaws, and I think it's difficult to overstate his importance to the film.
Yeah.
Designers aren't often people we talk about, but a mention should go to Roger Castell as well, I think. It was he who designed the iconic poster for Jaws, one of the great movie posters.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect for any bathroom.
Yes.
Have you seen as well the Polish poster for Jaws 2?
Well, obviously not.
Definitely not, John.
It's the same as the poster for Jaws, but the shark has got two mouths.
How disappointed would he be though in Poland if you go to see the film? It's only got one mouth.
Sure change.
Like, where's the film? The poster promised me.
Did they not print it wrong?
So a talented crew worked on Jaws then, and with the issues Spielberg had to contend with, many of those people were integral in helping him get it over the line.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
And that brings us to the end of part 2. We're still not done though. Come back for the third and final part where we talk about our highlights from Jaws and then rate the film out of 10.